I'm joined on stage by Michelle, CPO of Virgin Money, also has worked for Thomson Reuters, KPN, SAB Miller, and Rio Tinto in the past. Mita Gupta, who is EVP and Business Unit Head at WNS Procurement, who has worked at Globality, GEP, and Procurian. And a fun fact, we are both graduates of the same university.
Yeah. And
Sergei, who is Executive Director of Strategic Sourcing at Amgen. He's also worked for Estee Lauder, Bristol Myers Squibb, Merck, and Shearing. So we're going to start with debunking some myths. This could also be reframed as truth or dare, but we'll stick to the myths today. So the first myth, AI is coming for your jobs in procurement. Second myth, it's all startups driving what is being used from an AI perspective today and will be used in the future. Third myth, procurement is making all of its own tech decisions with AI as opposed to others in the organization. So the first question I have for everyone here is, what are AI myths that you see within procurement today and the broader organization? Or if you want to do truth or dare, we can do that too.
Maybe I'll start. I think the biggest myth is around how it'll impact humans and how it'll impact people in their roles, that it'll take over all of humanity, it'll take over everybody's job. And I think that's a little bit about what we want to talk about, is how it'll actually make the human more efficient. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I think that's the biggest myth that I've seen all around, regardless of organization, regardless of function.
Yeah, I mean, just I 100% agree with what you said, Mita. I think on top of that, the notion that AI is always accurate, right? I think you can apply AI to a data set, but if the data set is not accurate, I don't think AI is really going to solve a lot of your problems or deliver insights. Also, the fact, at Amgen at least, right, that AI is going to drive cost savings. I mean, there's different elements to driving cost. There's productivity, there's increased value delivery, so that this notion that AI is going to solve everything, I think is a myth within Amgen that we need to evolve sort of at pace.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with both Mita and Serge in that there's a lot of hype. So beyond the myth, there's also just hype. And it's very difficult if you're not a technologist to know how to separate the hype from the reality. So I think demystification is going to be a really big part of procurement practitioners in how we go about bringing these technologies in a knowing way into our organization. So, myth busting is going to be our new job for a lot of the AI segment that is going to impact, every source of industry and product and service.
So one way to bust myths is to talk about what is being actioned today. So what your organizations are actually doing with AI. And above all, what is the value that you're getting out of them? And obviously, we have data issues and other challenges we need to overcome. But in terms of what you're actually doing, it would be great to, maybe, Michelle, we could start with you in terms of what are you doing?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. So what is the business doing? How are we looking as a bank for things that AI can bring to the bank in terms of value? So that's one part. And obviously, although ChatGPT has transformed the way we think about AI is not fundamentally new. So sort of thinking about machine learning and those sorts of problems are things that the bank has been working on from a technology perspective for a number of years. If you think about fraud identification, risk identification, know your customer, all of those sorts of elements, machine learning has been incredibly helpful to understand those problems and solve quite a lot of those problems. And then separately, what are we doing in procurement? So I think our philosophy at Virgin Money is we can't only rely on one technological platform to solve all of our problems. We're very, very blessed in that we have an active technical community that we can work with to help solve some of our technical problems. And we are going into the Microsoft suite quite extensively. So we are an early pilot within Virgin Money for using Copilot in anger in the Microsoft space, because we believe that our use cases are pretty strong. So whether it's using it over Word to extract sort of inferences about our contracts, whether it's using it over Excel to extract inferences on rate cards and responses to RFP, all those elements we see as being incredibly powerful dare I say it, co-pilot to how we in procurement can do things a lot slicker and quicker than we currently are. So we're going whole of function, full-on adoption, and within the next 12 months, 100% of the procurement function will be fully adopted. We're setting the KPIs, we're setting the baselines. Where are we now? How does this help make us faster, more efficient, more effective in what we're doing? And if we're not measuring the baseline, it's going to be very difficult to know how and if we are becoming more effective and more efficient. So, that's one small element and use case that we're bringing to the procurement organization right now.
I would say from an Amgen procurement perspective, and I'll specifically just speak about procurement, we're on a journey, right? And I think there's sort of 4 levers, which is bringing AI into our organization. One, as you said, Michelle, is around sort of productivity of the day-to-day activities. That's an Amgen-wide mandate, so most of our employees have access to Microsoft Copilot and are adopting that via trainings that are available and hopefully integrating that to increase day-to-day worker productivity. I would say the other piece is, depending upon where people sit within a procurement organization, I'd call it grassroots development of AI capability, right? So we're exploring virtual assistants, explaining to people our policy, right? Instead of going to a static Excel file for preferred suppliers, which we still have today, how do you do that in a virtual assistant? Our analytics team uses it for coding, decoding our analytics workflows. A lot of it's coming through the partners we have today, existing, right? So the platforms we use, the technologies we use, they're integrating AI and Gen AI into it. So there's an adoption through the technologies that we have. And then the 4th lever would be, we are undergoing a procurement transformation. So as we think about our roadmap, what is the role that technology plays in that?
I actually love this question because I'm taking a slightly different perspective from WNS Procurement, which is a tech-enabled services provider, and sort of building on something you just said, Serge. One of the key things that we have developed and continuing the roadmap on is indeed a co-pilot or a procurement intelligent assistant that is working with different personas that are across the organization, be it a category manager, a risk manager, a sourcing manager, so that they have access to insights and recommendations. And what this co-pilot is doing is accessing millions of data points across market intelligence, the supplier intelligence, category intelligence that we have, and/or the data that's in our client system, so that the category manager, depending on the persona, can immediately have insights and recommendations. Therefore, they're more efficient and able to be more proactive, or as we say, going from descriptive and diagnostic to prescriptive and predictive in their roles.
Building on that, it's 100% of where I want to go, and I am passionate about procurement. I've been in procurement for 20 plus years, but we talk about this concept of category on a page, right? Wouldn't it be great if I have any category, I have a cost structure, my external signals feed that cost structure, I tie it to the metadata in my contracts, and the category manager gets real-time insights and decisions that he or she should be able to take. This is where I think we need to go when I think about sort of the opportunity and what I imagine, but it builds exactly upon what you're saying.
And if I can just say one other thing on top of that, it's this notion of the AI plus HI, the artificial intelligence plus the human intelligence. And depending where you are on the spectrum of sort of tactical to strategic, that's what impacts whether the equation of how much HI or the human in the loop is there versus the AI, and more specifically the Gen AI.
So Serge, following up on that question, and we can get back to our stage ones in a minute, but I'm curious, when you say AI has huge impact on the category manager, and I think, Mita, you said it as well, when do you think we might progress to a point where the category manager is hybrid, or we have AI category managers and we have humans as well? Is that 5 years, 10 years?
AI category managers?
Yes. Who can
I think the way I would think about it is there are probably aspects of category management that an AI will probably enable. But this idea of true category management, so, Shashi talked about business partnering, developing a category strategy, those aspects of our role that I think we need to evolve to, in my opinion, is going to be a long time, if ever, and AI will take that over, right? How do we talk to the business? How do we, again, using an analogy from this morning, have a seat at the table but a voice that aligns to the business strategy, and how do we inform a multi-year value delivery plan? Those aspects, it's going to be a long time, but I think there are aspects of analysis, insights, that will be taken over by category managers.
Yeah, Jason, I did a talk here last year in which, sort of we were 9 months into the post-ChatGPT release into the wild situation. So, we've obviously moved on quite a lot in a year. But at the time, I said the really important thing for procurement practitioners to do is to learn how to use the tools, but then dial up their humanity. Because I truly agree with Serge, and I think we're all in vigorous agreement on so many elements here. We're probably quite boring, the way in which you use the tool does not necessarily facilitate a better quality of dialogue. And if we can't have good quality dialogues with our business, understanding how business strategy informs business architecture, how business architecture informs enterprise architecture, how enterprise informs solution architecture, and then the supply base that supports that sort of strategic stack, where no matter how much AI we throw at the problem, we're still going to get category strategies that aren't read by anybody. So I think that dialogue upstream of really understanding your business problem and articulating it in business language, and I hate to say it, I've been doing procurement much like Serge for close to 3 decades, but the word category strategy is a nonsense for almost anybody outside of procurement.
That's right.
I've never had anyone in the business rush up to me and say, please show me your category strategy because it's going to change my world. What I have had is, hang on, we're the experts here. Why do you think that you can write my strategy for me? So I think we've just got to reposition the dialogue. But I do think that human in the loop with this AI friend, assuming it's not hallucinating, that can allow you to do a market research exercise quite quickly. Tell me about traceability. It tells me what I need to know about traceability while I'm on a call with a business stakeholder. It tells me about vendors in the traceability space within 2.5 seconds. I mean, that tool at your disposal makes us sound far more intelligent than probably many of us are. But I think that's the really, really exciting thing. Tell me what I need to know about this contract. Tell me what I need to know about this rate card. There's inferences that can be pulled that are quite deep and rich, that will enhance the ability to become more strategic and to bring insights to the business and thereby have a much higher quality of conversation. And that, I think, is more than just human in the loop. I mean, human in the loop is the concept that says, let's make sure that we're checking the black box and that the black box isn't serving up garbage. But I think, how do we become part of that loop where we insert ourselves in a dialogue? And, I hesitate to use the word seat at the table because that assumes that there's a table. How do we give a party and invite people to the party and use an AI-enabled category mindset to foster a business conversation? And that, for me, is the future of the function and the future of the opportunity of the function. And I think AI is tremendously exciting in what it can bring us as practitioners.
So let's step back in time. When I first got into procurement technology 25 years ago, anything that IT brought you was something that you had to accept, but maybe not something you wanted, without naming names. But obviously things have changed a lot with corporate IT and other functions from a technology perspective too, with CISOs and other executives. But I'm curious from everybody up here on stage, what are you doing distinctively in procurement versus what IT or other technology leaders in the business outside of procurement are bringing to you? So maybe Michelle, if you want to start.
Okay, so I think we're doing 2 quite practical things. One is we're making sure that we're part of the budgeting cycle. I know a lot of organizations are quite good at this, but not all. So how does procurement make sure they understand how budgets, both CapEx and OpEx budgets, are being cut? What projects are on the slate? How does that then work horizontally across the organization? So we are now a formal part of that annual budgeting cycle. And then 2 is we're working very closely with our process-driven manner with our enterprise technology organization to define the means by which we come to an end-to-end enterprise view of, do we make it or do we buy it? And if we buy it, all the way up here in terms of business strategy, what is it in service of realizing for the business? What you then end up with is inadvertently a category strategy, but it's been driven by our strategy department in tandem. So we are equal partners in this exercise. So neither of those has anything to do with AI, but it very definitely means that we are, as a procurement function, going further up the strategic stack rather than waiting to be told, you will have SAP, whether you like it or not. And that, I mean, we're a bank, so we're a technology organization. That is very much an integrated organizational conversation that we are fostering and leading with the business. So we say, fine, you're a deep subject matter expert here in traceability, but what does that mean across the horizontal of our enterprise end-to-end architecture, our business architecture and our business strategy, and then how does the supply base support that stack, and what can we bring to that mix in pretty fundamental stuff, buy versus make versus buy conversations, and procurement 101. But we are up here now in terms of those integrated conversations, which is a very powerful place to be.
So, Serge, are you happy around what IT and the business is bringing to you, or?
I mean, it's an interesting time at Amgen. I think earlier this year, our head of R&D became our chief technology officer. And David Reese, if you ever heard him talk, right? He talks about a hinge moment, Gen AI and AI. It's here now. So we have combined our medical and technology organizations to really focus on how do we reimagine how we do our business. So it's not just focused R&D, it goes across all our functions. High level, it's a test and learn approach that we've taken. We've implemented governances around getting approval depending on what the use cases are, right? And so how do you weigh the use cases? Speed to patients, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, productivity. It's an interesting time because we recognize that we need to do this and we need to be ahead of the game, right? So we're kind of building the plane as we're flying it too, but it's very much a test and learn approach with the appropriate governances in place.
So, Mita, new question. Kind of a fun one, but a very serious one. So, what types of KPIs can we use to measure the adoption and impact of AI? It's great to say it's out there. We can bust myth all day long, but how can we actually measure the impact we're having on procurement?
Yeah, very serious question. So when I go back to just thinking about how does Gen AI facilitate and help the various personas or the roles that I was talking about earlier, whether it's the category manager and so forth, it is to drive efficiency in what they're doing, the cycle time of what they're doing, their access to data, their access to insights on just a much more efficient basis. So one of the key KPIs is that efficiency, and that can be measured by cycle time, for example. Another KPI is the accuracy of decision making. And there are many ways, multiple ways to measure something like that. But that's ultimately what we're trying to get to, is better decision making, better proactive decision making, and the efficiency in what they're doing and what processes they're responsible for. The other stuff still remains, driving additional cost savings and things of that nature. If you're looking at risks, key risk measures and things of that, things like that will remain on the dashboard. But I think efficiency and the accuracy of decision making are some of the biggest KPIs that we'd want to add to that dashboard.
Excellent. Serge, metrics and KPIs.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in reality at Amgen today, and then I'll give perspective on some other ones. I mean, I think productivity is probably the one that we're using the most, right? Quantifying, hey, hours saved. But, as we progress and let's say continue our journey, I would think about things like adoption, right? Adoption of tools, employee satisfaction, right? Because if it's significantly going to change the way we do our work, you kind of have to see how our employees react to that, right? Same thing with our customers, too. Compliance is another one, right? And especially in procurement, if we have preferred supplier strategy, measure compliance to our strategies, measure compliance to our policies, things like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, sort of, time to be able to do something, as I was alluding to earlier. the exponential speed, appropriate for the 10x conference, but the exponential speed with which it can achieve an outcome is just mind-blowing. So how do you baseline how long it takes me to do X today and versus tomorrow? And that has to happen at the individual practitioner level, because if you're at the start of your reader contract career or a more mature practitioner, your ability to be able to crank through that contract is going to be different in terms of time. So what we need to do is make sure that we've got bottom line metrics that are at the individual practitioner level, and that's what we're busy doing with our co-pilot pilot. Then I think use cases and the effectiveness of use cases. So if we hypothesize that reading a contract and surfacing up intelligent knowledge out of the contract or insights out of the contract will be facilitated by AI, is the hypothesis proven? And can we take 5 of those use cases and then sort of understand across 5 what the common threads and themes are? So less a measurement and more a discovery. And then I think the pursuit of a very, very dynamic world, how do we just make as a function everything we do slicker and quicker? And is AI contributing meaningfully to slicker and quicker?
So we've only got a couple minutes left, but this is a loaded question. So maybe 30 seconds each, or thereabouts. If you were starting from scratch, no legacy tech, no legacy team, on a first principles basis, how would you design procurement today with the AI that's coming out?
If it was completely clean slate, starting with the business objectives, what is it that we're trying to do as a business, an organization, a company? And then building around that, then what are the key processes we need to set up? I mean, in procurement, we know some of the basics that will always sort of still exist, but what are those processes that we need to set up? And then designing the right skill set, team, and procurement org structure around that. At the heart of it will be the data. It has to be the data. And starting with, in the ideal world, then you're starting with a clean data set, and all of our users will be entering clean data and doing it on a timely basis. But the crux of it and the heart of it would be that clean data that will then allow us to drive those insights, those recommendations, those efficiencies.
So in 30 seconds, I would agree with a lot of that. At Amgen, we're actually on that journey. So we're looking at what we want to be when we grow up for simplicity's sake, but we're looking at our entire source-to-pay process. I think AI, Gen AI will have different impacts, but we have prioritized analytics, but really connected, accurate data as a first step in our transformation journey. But the only other point I will emphasize is we can't underestimate how we need to sort of reimagine what our procurement organization is going to do depending upon where they sit on that source-to-pay spectrum. So capability development, data scientists, but also in the front office, right? How do you speak the language of the business, I think is going to be critical. So reimagining our curriculum.
Yeah, I think the front office matters most, which is probably a little anarchic. If we can't have the conversation with the business, it makes no difference what we design. So I think we've got to rethink our vocabulary. We've got to stop talking about savings. We've got to stop talking about savings against budget. We've got to start talking about what the business needs to be able to support their objectives, which are in service of overarching enterprise objectives. And I think a lot of procurement organizations are still using the wrong vocabulary. So unfortunately, we still speak a foreign language.
Well, thank you, Michelle and Serge and Mita. That was fantastic. Really appreciate the insight tips on what's really going on in terms of adoption. So, very good.
Thank you. Thank you.